It's always amazing for me to be at a prophecy conference. And, I was listening to Don Stewart before and how things tie together and how things link together. And for me, it's amazing because for me, prophecy is a little bit different, I think, than for the rest of you. And I'm going to just read a small passage that I like to start off with usually. And just a part of a prophecy that you all know, one of the most famous prophecies. And this is from the book of Ezekiel. And Ezekiel, anybody remember the story? Ezekiel talks about the dry bones. Okay? And, I'm going to paraphrase most of this because I don't want to do the whole thing, and he brought me to the valley, and in the middle of the valley was the bones. And, he says to me, what are these bones? And Ezekiel says, I don't know. And he says, these are my people. This is Israel. But the bones were dry, and there was nothing, and there was no breath in them. And he says, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Indeed, they say, our bones are dry, our hope is lost, and we ourselves are cut off. Therefore, talk to the bones and say, the Lord God, behold my people. I will open your graves and cause you to come up from your graves. And I will bring you to the land of Israel. Then you shall know that I am the Lord, when I have opened your graves, my people, and brought you up from your graves. And I will put my spirit in you, and you shall live. And I will place you in your own land. Then you shall know that I, the Lord, have spoken it. That was a prophecy. But as opposed to the prophecies we've talked about today, this one's already been fulfilled. I'm standing here. I'm one of those bones. I'm one of those people that after 2,000 years, and Don put it together in such a beautiful way, have come back to their own homeland, have come out of their graves, have stood up in their homeland and said, we are here. And the reason God did that is to prove to all of us and everybody else that he is God. When he makes a promise, he doesn't break it. When he makes a connection, he doesn't break it. When we stand up and say we are here, we are fulfilling that prophecy. So we're going to be talking about a lot of the different aspects of the prophecy. And what I like is the fact that I get to stand here and bring the prophecy from the biblical level, from the future level, and bring it down to the ground. Because I'm here to represent my people, my history, my land, and my story. I'm here to show you that prophecy comes to life on the ground, and talk a little bit about what's happening today in Israel, maybe a little bit about what we think might happen, and maybe a little bit about your role in everything that comes to do. Because you can stand here and talk about prophecy, and you can talk about what's happening, and you can talk about things that are going to happen, but you forget. And I think this week has been a very important week to kind of tie this together. You forget that you have a role to play in this. And let's see if we can kind of tie this together and kind of explain. I love making connections, and you're going to see connections come together in all kinds of different ways. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of the background about, who I am and why I'm here, and maybe what I represent. The name is David Tal, but like most good Jews, I've got two last names, okay? One name is David Tal, the other is David Goldberg, and again, I mean, there's nothing more Jewish than David Goldberg. I mean, that's about... It's about as Jewish. Classical, the accent, by the way, is American because I was born in the States, but classical Jewish immigration story. Don kind of reminded us all, we were in exile for 2,000 years. And one of the things that happened to us after the destruction of Jerusalem, we get a large amount of Jews moved from Eastern Europe in the beginning of the 1900s, 1890, 1900, in my case, 1904, and my family immigrated from Poland through the Ellis Island story, and a lot of you know or are connected to that story, to the United States of America, and ended up in the United States of America. Polish Jews emigrating to the United States. I don't know if you know, but the whole movie industry is based on that. All of the movie studios, all the big Hollywood studios are Polish Jews that came from the same area that my family came from. I owe a huge debt of gratitude. And me personally, because this is my family story, but the Jews as a whole owe a huge debt of gratitude to the United States of America for accepting Jews in an open, liberal, equal, prosperous way where nobody else was willing to accept the Jewish people. I have a deep conviction that the United States of America has been blessed, among other things, because of the way they treated their Jews. And that's something to kind of tie together. But my family emigrated to the States. Actually, I was born in San Diego, literally in San Diego. And then the young Jewish family became believers in Yeshua. And they decided that they wanted to be missionary pilots in Africa. And they went to Moody Bible Institute. Anybody remember something like that? And in Moody Bible Institute, they were convinced not to go to Africa, but to go and teach their own people. So I ended up in Israel as a little 4-year-old, just in time for the Six-Day War. I mean, literally, one of my first, memories is getting ready for the Six-Day War. And I'm in a unique position to be in Israel at the time where all of these events are happening. And maybe my story and my people's story needs to tie into some of what's going on today and what's going to happen in the future. Don said, no people have ever been banished from their land and come back. Not only to come back, but to grow into bones that are alive and thrive and kicking. We not only did it once, we did it twice. And my people were kicked out from their land first time in the Babylonian exile. And a lot of things changed, okay? We learned to speak a little bit different. I don't know if you know, Hebrew changed a little bit different during the Babylonian exile. But when we came back and we settled in our land, again, there's no land, there's no people that have had to fight for their land more than the Jewish people have. And I could put a list from here to the other side of the hall over there with battles and wars that we have fought for the land. Maybe one day we're going to do this. I've got a website up, a YouTube channel up called The Balagan Connection. Okay, check that out because I will be putting up information connecting to some of these things. But we were exiled from our land and we thought it all was lost. And in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the door opened up, and for all kinds of reasons that I'm not going to go into. And again, there's prophetic reasons, there's biblical reasons. I specialize in military and political reasons. Okay, we came back to our homeland, but it came at a price. We had to fight every inch of the way. From before the creation of the State of Israel, through the creation of the State of Israel, we fought for our independence, we fought for our freedom, and we fought for our acceptance back in, and I'm going to use a term that I need people to start using, back in our ancestral homeland. This is where we come from. This is where my ancestors are from. This is where I am supposed to be. But because we are the apple of God's eye, we had to bear the brunt of everybody who was up and against God. So nobody accepted the fact that we should have come back. And some people did. Okay. Side note, I was reading about this a little while ago. 100 years ago, the British Empire actually wrote a declaration, okay, called the Balfour Declaration. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. It actually was the first time that a world power politically said we will accept the acceptance of a Jewish homeland in the Middle East. It is the first time that biblical prophecy was turned into political policy. Okay, it's a very important declaration. But what I need you to understand is that the reason the British Empire made a biblical prophecy into a political policy is because of born-again Christians inside the British administration who realized that this is a fulfillment of prophecy and decided to turn that prophetic idea into a political movement. And I'm stressing this again and again because we're in a prophecy conference, but what I need you to understand, especially today, in a week that this has happened, that the politics are the engine, in many cases, are the ways that things happen. And I'm going to give you a side note. The reason I'm stressing this is because you are all political warriors. We saw that happen today. And I'm sorry to say, I don't know what's going to be the final outcome, but you understand that the battle is being fought on a spiritual level, on a media level, but also on a political level. And what I'm here to say, and I came all the way from Israel to say this to you, is that you have a role to play in that political battle. And let's see if I can explain a little bit. The reason I'm here is because, well, Like every other Israeli, at the age of 18, I went into the military. I tried to be a pilot. They kicked me out. I ended up a tank commander. And for the last, I'm going to say 30 years, it's been my job to defend my country from the back of a tank. Well, actually 11 tanks. When I was kind of growing up a little bit, they gave me a whole company of tanks, and I get to kind of run around in them. By the way, it's the ultimate guy's toy, just so you know. I mean, an all-terrain vehicle that fires high explosive 5 miles downrange. I mean, what else can a guy ask for? My wife used to be jealous. But no, to make the America's buying this technology from us, okay, that takes out the incoming missiles in the air, or the incoming rockets in the air. And again, the war has changed to a war where Israel is being delegitimized by the world opinion. So people are not saying that today Israel should be destroyed. People are saying today Israel should not exist. Okay, now how can you say Israel should not exist if you have a book like this that talks about Israel existing, why it should exist, where it should exist, and how long it should exist? The only way for people to be convinced or to fight the battle or to delegitimize Israel, to erase Israel off of this existence plane, is by disregarding this book. And what I'm here to do is to remind Christians, and in this case I'm speaking to the choir, but I don't always speak to the choir, but I'm here to remind Christians that Israel is part of this book. And when God made a promise, tell you what, let's read it. It's always interesting to read this promise. This is Genesis chapter 12. And I think you've heard this verse before, but I always get shivers when I read it. And God said to Abraham, go out of your country, leave your family, go away from your father's house to a land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all of the families of the earth shall be blessed. God made that promise, not me, not President Trump. God made that promise. And then the Lord appeared to Abraham, and he said, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Lord where God had appeared to him. So God makes a connection between the Jewish people, my people, the promised land, and himself. That triangle is still in existence. And I'm here to remind everybody that if God breaks that promise, how do you know he's not going to break the rest of the promises? Or if you don't believe God breaks promises, then he's not going to break this one either. That's where we're here. But here's the thing. More and more people are forgetting that connection. More and more people are forgetting why this connection needs to stay in place. More and more people are forgetting that when Israel comes back to its homeland in 1948 and fights for it in 1967 and fights again in 1973, we're not coming here to conquer anything. We are returning to God's promise. We are fulfilling God's prophecy, just like you had heard here from Don. And that is going to continue. But there's a war against Israel. People have tried to disassociate Israel from the land. And I'm going to even say something a lot of people haven't understood, and this is a concept that we're grasping right now. I'm going to say even this. Israel was created immediately after the Holocaust. And I've heard a lot of people say that Israel was created because of the Holocaust. I don't know if you've heard that. Because the world was feeling guilt about what happened to the Jews in the Holocaust. I'm going to say something else. I think the Holocaust was a final last-ditch attempt to wipe out the Jewish people before they fulfilled the prophecy in 1948. Did you understand what I just now said? Most people turn it over. No. We were supposed to come back. We were on our way back. We'd already started returning. By the way, the first of the pioneers were already in Israel in 1948 when this all has happened. What I'm trying to do is connect what's going on the ground to prophecies from the past, and we're going to connect them also to the prophecies in the future. But it's not easy. Israel is under attack. It's under spiritual attack. It's under media attack. It's under ideological attack. I've been a tour guide now for about 13, 14 years. I always just kind of forget. I'm, by the way, terrible with dates, so I apologize beforehand that me and dates never get along. But what I'm trying to say is that I've started coming back to the States in the last 6, 7 years to reconnect some of the churches to what's going on in Israel. So I've got this unique position that I can see what's going on. And I start coming back to the States, and I start seeing changes in the churches in the States. And I sit with people like you, with pastors, you know, and families, and I'm realizing that Christianity and everything that you hold dear is under attack in the United States. By the way, we've just now seen one of the main battles that is taking place. That battle is taking place right now. Again, I don't know what the outcome is going to go, but I got to understand, or we all understand, that this is a battle that is being fought as we speak. Now, the weird thing that I realized, that there is a battle that is being fought for Israel. So I'm into the media. I'm starting to listen to who's talking about Israel. I'm trying to realize who's delegitimizing Israel. And one of the things I realized a couple of years ago is that the same people that are fighting against Israel are the same people that are fighting against you here. It's the same ideology, same concept. It's the same idea. I'm going to use terms that, I mean, if you want to go into philosophy, we can talk about postmodernism. We can talk about cancel culture. We can talk about, you know, critical race theory. And we can talk about all of those things that you're starting to hear about now. But basically, they're all versions of the same thing. And this war is being fought right now in the minds, in the hearts, and actually what's going on in the States for the last year, year and a half, in the streets of the United States of America. It's happening. It's happening, and what I realize is that my nation, my people, my existence as a nation is under attack from the same people that are attacking your existence as a Christian nation. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that we are on the same side of this war. And if you lose your war, I might lose my war. Or, let's do the other side. If I lose my war, they're coming after you. We are tied together. The Christian church, especially the evangelical church in the United States, and the state of Israel, is spiritually, politically, militarily, economically tied together. And I'm here to remind the United States of that connection. And I'm here to remind you that the battle is still being raged. Now, all of us are sitting here on this week. I think most of you shiver every time I say that, because you feel that you're on the battleground right now. You feel that the battle is being raged. And again, I don't think I have to remind the people in this church, but there are other churches that need to hear this message. Your support for Israel is also for you. But let me give you a couple of reasons why support for Israel is critical also for us. Well, I think it's also critical for you. Well, the first reason to support Israel is because the Bible told you to. I mean, that's easy, right? I mean, that's an easy one. I mean, that's it. But there are other reasons. And again, I know I'm standing on a pulpit, but I need, or I feel the need sometimes to turn things into more tangible, more real, more worldly aspects. Israel is a strategic ally of the United States of America. Anybody who knows anything about the United States' position in the world knows that the United States of America is under attack. I mean, what happened in 9/11 is just one instance. You've got Putin on the other side of the world. You've got the Chinese that are kind of itching, okay? You've got Turkey kind of messing around with all kinds of things. America has a lot of enemies all over the world, okay? Doesn't have that many allies. And here's the thing, more and more time goes by, your allies are kind of falling along the way. Europe used to be a great ally of the United States. I'm not sure how close that is anymore, okay? Turkey was part of NATO. I don't know if you know, okay? China did not have the power to threaten the United States. Everything's changing. Even Russia and Putin is kind of taking off his shirt and showing everybody his muscles and saying, look at what. So, in a very strategic place in the world, you have an ally that is as loyal and as close as you ever had. Yes, you pay money for that. I don't know if you know, but there's billions of dollars that go in aid to Israel. But that was much, much cheaper than keeping an aircraft carrier in the Eastern Mediterranean. I don't know if you know that. And what I'm trying to say is that that is a non-biblical reason, but like everything ties together. It's another reason. Another reason is that we are a democratic nation. And if for somebody who's watched the democratic process being played out here, with all of its complexities, I don't know of a better way to run a modern society today. The only democracy in the Middle East, the only democracy in that part of the world is the democratic state of Israel. And yes, you can tell me that Egypt is a democracy, but when a president is elected by 98.8% of the votes, that's kind of not a democracy. Now, I would, until a week and a half ago, I would say you are the greatest democracy in the world. I used to think our political system was a balagan until I realized what's going on over here. Balagan means mix up, mess up, snafu, all of those. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is, for better or for worse, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. We're also the first line of defense. And if you're following what's going on, both here and on a worldly scale, okay, everything that you hold dear, the values, the ethics, the biblical aspect, and I'm going to put something else that a lot of people don't really understand. Again, I study history, I study a little bit of philosophy, I come from a military background. There was, and I'm stressing the was, and I'm sorry I have to say it like this, there was a godliness in the United States of America that was a basic part of what made America America. Your founding fathers, and we heard this, were Christians. They were believers. Now, I'm not saying everything in America is born-again Christian, but I'm saying that there was a godliness that permeated your society, your culture, your legal system, your ethical system, and guys, you put it on your dollar bill, okay? It was America to say, in God we trust, okay? It was very American to be Christian, and it was very Christian to be American. You got that? You're losing that. I'm not sure you've lost it yet. That's a big one, but you are losing that. And what I'm here to tell you more than anything, and this gives me shivers every time I realize what I'm talking about, is that you can't take it for granted anymore. And I think what happened this week, as much as everything else, yes, you might be having a change of administration. I don't know who's going to be at the White House, but whoever's in the White House, what I saw this week was a change in the United States of America. America broke away from its godliness in a bigger way than I've ever seen before. And I think that's what you need to understand. No matter who wins this election, you have to realize that something is rising up in your society, in your culture, that is breaking away from all of those aspects that made America what it was. And I'm worried that America's not going to be the same America when that takes over everything that you hold dear. And what I'm trying to say is, I'm worried for you, my brothers and my sisters. I'm worried for you because I think America is an amazing country. I do have American citizenship. I mean, I am closely, and I'm one of the 5 Israelis who actually follow American football. Okay, I love it. But what I'm trying to say is, when you go down, we're going to go down. Or I'm not going to say we're going to go down, but we're going to be on our own. The United States of America and the former administration, and anybody who's been watching Tom's YouTube channel, saw me standing next to the Embassy of the United States of America in Jerusalem. The United States of America has been supporting Israel in a way that no other administration has. After World War I, they tried the first time. After World War II, they tried the second time to create a world government. I don't know if you know, but the United Nations, the League of Nations after World War I, the United Nations after World II. It doesn't really work, but they're still trying. And one of the things that they're trying to do is to create a one world government that is governed by other aspects than what we would suggest or we would accept as right and wrong. Because Israel is the apple of God's eyes and persecuted on a worldly scale, the United Nations, as a government that is trying to convey world opinion, okay, has been very anti-Israel. Did you guys follow me on that one? Okay. Our guardian in the United Nations of terrible resolutions, okay, against Israel has been the United States of America and the United Nations. I don't know if you know that. The Security Council, with the power of veto, America has had our backs. When the United Nations passed a resolution that said that Zionism means that Jews should live in Zion. Zion is Jerusalem or Israel, okay? Zionism is a political movement that fulfills biblical prophecy. Did you understand? Because if Jews should be living in the promised land, okay, if God's chosen people should be in the promised land, the movement to make that happen should be a fulfillment of prophecy. When the United Nations voted to call Zionism racism and to ostracize Israel because we wanted to bring our people back, okay, you understand the problem. Okay, why am I tying all this together? Because it's political, it's prophetic, it's spiritual, but you also have a role to play in what's going on. If I'd have been standing here a week and a half ago, I would have said, please vote for President Trump. But I got a feeling that, I don't have to say that, okay? I wonder if anybody here did not. I mean, that would be an interesting one. But, okay, but what I'm trying to say is, President Trump actually supported Israel more than any other president in the past. All right. So if President Trump is in office next week, hallelujah. But if he's not, that's when you have a role to play. You have political power. And I'm going to use what's happened in the last week in order to illustrate a little bit about what we're seeing. I don't know if you noticed, but for me watching what's going on from over there, I mean, I was amazed. There were movements that grew up. There were people out on the streets, okay, teaching a philosophy, an idea that is totally unbiblical. And some of what we've been seeing, and some of the, some of the politics that have been mixed into your political system are totally unbiblical. The whole identity politics, I don't know if you know, goes against everything that the Bible has ever said. Okay? The whole disruption, and here's what you're seeing, and maybe we're going to the panel, we can talk about this. When people say there's no such thing as truth, everything is relative. Have you heard that before? And you're hearing that from one side. That means everything is relative. There's no right. There's no wrong. There's no prophecy. There's nothing that you can actually accept as truth. Then everything gets thrown out of the window. And I'm seeing that spreading into your culture. I'm seeing it from there, and I'm saying, how are Americans buying into this? What's going on? And then I'm seeing people yelling in the streets, or members of Congress saying there's no such thing as truth, and what the Bible said 3,000 years ago doesn't have anything to do with anything political today. And I'm hearing nobody saying, no, that's wrong. And what I'm saying is this. I'm hearing one side being very vocal, standing up for their ideals, burning and rioting in the streets of the United States. I'm not hearing the other side being as loud, as vocal, and standing up for your ideals the way they stand up for theirs. That's right. What I need you to do is get off your couch. Get on the streets. Get on the internet highway. Get on the social media. Make as much noise as they're making. Why not? And as long as you don't, you're going to lose. Because the battle isn't being fought in the churches. The battle is being fought in the media realm. The battle is being fought on social media. The battle is being fought all over. And I'm sorry to say, from where I'm looking at from the other side of the world, you guys are losing. You guys are losing the battle. And if everybody Christian in the United States had voted for President Trump, no amount of fraud would have been able to put that into jeopardy. You didn't. I'm sorry to say you. I'm not blaming you personally, but I'm standing here as a representative of my people saying Christianity did not support the candidate that was supporting Israel. And that's what has me worried as an Israeli. That's what needs to change. And I need you to help make that change. I need you to be the ones who stand up and say what is right. And I know it's not easy. I know, and again, you heard James today, and you've heard Pastor Tom, and you've heard Don Stewart, and I don't know how much flack I'm going to get from what I'm saying here. Okay, it's not easy to be the ones that stand up and say, this is what we should be doing. But I need more and more people to stand up, even if it's not acceptable, it's not social justice, it's not politically correct, to stand up and say, there is truth, and there's no truth. There is right, and there is wrong. This is what is right, and to stand up and say, because the other side is saying the same thing for they're saying what we think is right is right. What we think is true, and they're shoving it down your throat right now. Okay? And I don't hear Christians. I don't hear evangelicals. I don't hear people who read the Bible and use the Bible as a code of behavior saying, wait a minute, there is a different way to do this. And we're giving in. We're actually giving in. And I want to read one more passage just to tie this together. And after spending 40 years, or after leaving Egypt, I don't know if you remember, after leaving Egypt in Exodus, you know, the children of Israel walking around in circles, and they haven't figured out what's going on. And I'm going to read this from Numbers chapter 12, Numbers chapter 13. And I'm going to just paraphrase a couple of pieces of this, and let's see what we can take from this. And it says this, and the Lord spoke to Moses, and he said, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. No, he didn't say which I'm thinking about giving to the children of Israel. He didn't say that I'm planning to give to the children of Israel. He said that I am giving to the children of Israel, from each tribes of their fathers shall you send a man. So Moses sent out from the wilderness of Paran. I'm not going to go into them. Each tribe sent one of the men, and they went and they toured the land, and they were supposed to see, not to see if, but to see how that should be fulfilled. Okay, that's the idea of prophecy. That's the idea of what you heard from Don Stewart. That's the idea of what the question is not if, the question is how. And that's what I'm here to talk about. And then Moses sent them out to spy the land of Canaan. He said, go this way to the south and go up to the mountains. I'm in verse 12. And see what the land is like. See if the people are strong or weak, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether their cities they inhabit are like camps, whether the land is rich or poor, whether they're forced there. Be of good courage. This is what he says to the spies. Be of good courage and bring back some of the fruit of the land. Now was the reason of the ripe grapes. That's why I'm a tour guide, by the way, which is another story in itself. I'm a tour guide with no tourists. I don't know if you know, but the tour business has completely fallen apart in Israel. Okay, but the symbol of the Ministry of Tourism in Israel are these spies with grapes on their shoulders. You know the famous picture. And when they came and told them, and this is what the spies say, we went to the land where you sent us, and it truly flows with milk and honey. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And we saw the descendants of Anak there, and the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and oh my God! And it was Caleb. I don't know if you remember. And Caleb quieted the people before Moses and says, let's go up at once and take possession, because we will be able to overcome. The men who went with them said, no, we can't go up. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report, and as a result of that, the children of Israel did not go and take their inheritance. Out of 12 tribes, spies, there were only 2 who said, if God promised, it will happen. All of the rest freaked out. There are too many. There are too many electorates. They're not supporting us. There's things going on. They're bigger than us. They're stronger than us. And only 2 men were the ones who said, we can make this happen. If God wants this to happen, it will happen. What I need you to be are those 2 men. We've got a lot of others who are saying it's not going to happen. I need you to be Joshua and Caleb. I need you to be willing to take on what needs to be done and to lead your people into the promised land. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, yes, there are Amalekites there, and there are Hittites, and there are Democrats. Okay. But what I'm trying to say is, if it's promised and it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. There are a lot of reasons to say I'm afraid. There's a lot of reasons to say I'm not going to do it. But somebody needs to be the 2 out of the 12 that stand up and say, this is what should be done. And I'm here mainly to see how many of you are going to be the 2 and not the 10. And that's what we need to remember today. So, just to put it together, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. But I do know that there are Amalekites. I do know that it's going to be hard. I do know that it's got to be... But people have to stand up for what they think is important, what they believe the Bible says, what they think is biblical. Your nation was created on biblical standards. Don't throw them out the window. Don't let them go. Don't give up on them just like that. There is a godliness in the United States of America that no other nation has had in the past. Don't lose it. And you need to stand up and say, this is what's going to happen. We need more Joshuas. We need more Calebs to stand up and say, this is what should happen. And that's what I came here to say. So, from the state of Israel, I want to say thank you for your support. Thank you for giving us Trump for 4 years. We hope that you're going to have Trump for another 4 years. Okay? But whether Trump is the president or not, don't give in. Don't let go. Stand up. Say, this is what's supposed to happen. Okay? Be one of the 2 that knows what is right and does what is right. Thank you very much.